mom was an immigrant from Panama
Yes.
and passed when you were 6 years old.
Yes.
Tell us about your upbringing, your growing up, and how that influences the way that you view government and politics.
Yeah. My grandparents were, on my mom's side, immigrants who came to this country from, my grandmother was born in San Andres, Colombia. She met my Jamaican-born grandfather in Panama, where they raised their 6 kids, including my mom. And they cleaned bathrooms for a living, because they wanted a better life. And they saw education as that. And so my mom was a teacher, and she taught in San Jose, and she raised 4 kids, and so she couldn't. And when I was 6, she got sick, lost her battle with cancer. And my dad, who was a soldier out at Fort Ord in Monterey, was deployed to Vietnam and was in Vietnam when my mom passed away. So after she passed away, I was sent to live with a cousin in Philadelphia with my 5-year-old brother in tow. I'd never met this cousin before. She took us in and raised us as her sons. Well, if I'm being honest, she kept us on lockdown.
That's what a good mother does.
She said, you have 2 choices. You can go to school, or you can go to school. Guess what I chose? I went to school. She believed in education, though she didn't have a formal education. I was raised in a household where we didn't often have food. I grew up on free lunch programs, food stamps, and government cheese. We ate so much government cheese, I thought that USDA was a brand name. These programs helped my family overcome poverty, getting an education. And so these experiences shape how I think, not just about the governor's race, but service to Californians. And I've been honored to have 18 years in those offices that you have shared, and the mission's always been the same, serve the people. This governor's race comes at the most critical time because we have this economic crisis, and we have a madman in the White House who's trying to drive our country into the ground. But I believe that we are more than some of our circumstances, and we will rise up and we will overcome what's coming out of Washington, D.C., and we will get through to a better side. And that's why I want to be governor of this state and to help us lead through where we are right now.
Fantastic. Now, we've been talking a lot this afternoon, candidates, about the affordability crisis facing our state. California is the most expensive state in the country to live in. The San Francisco Bay Area is the most expensive metro area, cost of living wise. And so one of those component pieces for just unaffordability is housing.
Yeah.
And you have a very bold vision
Yes.
of building 2 million. We
Yes.
heard another candidate say 1 million.
He said 1 million. After I said 2 million, he was supposed to go above my number, but that's okay. That's okay.
So 2 million housing units in the next 4 years by
That's right.
2030.
That's right.
And let's dive in a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
how does that happen?
Yeah. The good news is we have all the elements to make that happen. There are 75,000 acres of land that's ready for development right now. It so happens that those acres of land sit on school district surplus property in each of the 58 counties in our state. And so I'm working on legislation that would allow school districts to work with developers to build housing there. The good news is it will not require any additional permitting from the city. And I think with just a little bit of support, if those districts built just 12 units on each of those parcels, we get to 2.3 million units of housing by the year 2030. It's something that we can do now. This state has not kept pace with the demand for housing, and we've seen the price go up as a result. This is an immediate solution. I have legislation right now that would provide some startup funds to school districts to help them in technical assistance, right? Because they don't normally do housing. And it would allow us to build the 2.3 million units of housing. And when you factor in that, and I'm going to make sure that we have down payment assistance programs for first-time home buyers, we can begin to build our way out of the housing crisis in the state of California.
Okay. Now, in terms of these housing parcels and helping with school districts, do you think that 4 years is enough runway to get those housing units completed if school districts are kind of not in the business of building housing? And what is the funding mechanism, or what is going to be the attraction for developers to actually invest in this kind of vision of building housing?
Well, developers are already interested. They won't stop calling me. And the financing is available in different ways. there are real estate transactions that every time a home is purchased, there are certain dollars that go to cities to support building affordable housing. I've introduced legislation that says that school districts should also be eligible for that same pot of funding. So it's not asking to make more funding allocations, it's just saying make a different municipality eligible. And so, but districts need the technical assistance also on how to do this. They need to know how to value the land. They need to know how many parcels can be built. And so this isn't something, and this isn't saying that if you're a school district employee, you're gonna be renting from your employer. This is not that. But they'll be partnering with developers that can build the affordable housing. So this strategy has already been studied by several groups, including out of UC Berkeley. They came up with a 4-year timeline. I accepted it as my homework assignment to say I will get it done and to give myself a measurable timeline to get that done.
Well, I'll say that we have teacher housing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Has been wildly successful. In
Yes.
fact, we had more lottery applicants for those housing units than we had housing available for teachers. But having the teachers in the communities that they serve, I think is a bonus for everybody all the way
Right.
around.
That's right. And we can expand it to first responders, nurses, city, county staff. Everyone is affected by the housing inaffordability crisis, as I call it. And this is something that we can do right now to change that.
Okay. So it's not just the affordability crisis, but it's also a question of budgets in the state, because what we've seen is the federal government is withholding a lot of money that should be coming to California, even though we send more money to Washington DC than they ever give back to us in benefits. There is a CEO tax. I'm sorry, I was corrected once on this. Billionaire's tax that is slowly inching its way towards the November ballot, and you are in full-throated support of that. Is that right?
Sorry for any billionaires in the room. I've endorsed the measure. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about that as a funding source, right? It's a one-time source of revenue. Would be taxing the 200 billionaires that live in the state of California, or who may have moved out of the state since then. But tell me why this is, why you're in support of this measure.
Think about California over the last few years. I mean, and I've been studying this for 18 years. We don't have steady and predictable revenue for the things that we need in our state. As you all know, we mostly get our revenue based on income tax, and that fluctuates. The way I often think of this is during the pandemic, we had flush budgets. We had some of the greatest surpluses ever. That means someone got rich during the pandemic and off of the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, we have these huge deficits. And so it seems to me that we need to have stable revenue that we can count on. We can't make it on income tax alone. And we cannot tax working families and middle-class families any more than you're already taxed. And so my idea is you tax billionaires, and then you give a tax credit to working families and middle-class families to have more money in your pocket every single month to pay for the rising costs of gas, groceries, and housing, while we build more housing to help bring down the cost when there's more supply to meet the demand. And so call me Robin Hood, tax the billionaires, give it to the people of California, and say that we want to support the ability to have more health care. Many people are going to be kicked off of our Medi-Cal and Medicaid rolls. Many people are already seeing their premiums go up from the Affordable Care Act, from the changes that were made in Washington, D.C. by the so-called big ugly bill, or whatever they're calling it. And so we know that hospitals will close, emergency rooms will close. This measure will give us the ability to continue to provide the healthcare safety network that we need to protect Californians.
So in terms of us really needing a consistent stream of funding for our budgets, does this CEO tax not go far enough? Because it's kind of a one-time thing. So does it not go far enough in terms of providing that continuous stream of funding for our state?
I think it's a great start, but I think we have to look at other loopholes that could be closed in our tax structure. Again, that protect working families and middle-class families, but ask those who've earned more to pay more and to do their fair share. It's as simple as that. Californians are really shouldering the burden for the services that are needed. Now, the first thing we have to do is look for any waste and fraud and root that out. There are programs in our state where there is documented waste, like in the unemployment compensations division. There is fraud, and to the tune of billions.
Oh, there's a ton of fraud in ETD, right around the time of the pandemic, yeah.
Absolutely, and people were very open about it, that they were collecting a check, and that creates a disservice to those who experience, an injury or hardship. And so, yes, we have to have accountability, but California, 40% of those who are unhoused in our state are older Californians. We have to have revenue to take care of those who are unhoused in our state. We have to have revenue to close the gap on these healthcare items that we need. We need more revenue still for California schools and for higher education. Think of those who are in our CSUs and our UCs. These are the flagship institutions anywhere. So many of our students are homeless. They are food insecure. Our California students experience more debt just to get an education. They won't be able to buy a home or launch a business. That's why this year I introduced a bill that would actually make college free. And allow someone to go for free, and when they get a job, they start to pay that back, and it creates a pool of money for the next group of folks who come after them. They call it pay it forward. Because I've heard all the stories from people who said, I went to the UC for free. Anybody in here? I hear this all the time. And so we have to lower the debt for our families who are trying to finance a college degree. And so I think we're going to need other forms of revenue to go along with this billionaire's tax so that government can continue to deliver on its promise to those who need additional support.
So my next question is about public education, and I feel like I'm talking to a subject matter expert here. So, we saw a lot of strikes,
Yes.
and we will continue to see teacher strikes for our school districts. I know that you came by to the negotiations between UESF and the San Francisco Unified School District. What is your vision for how California funds public education so that we have a workforce that is ready to step into those 21st century jobs to keep our economy moving?
Yeah. Any educators in the house? Big round of applause to all of our educators. Thank you. Thank you. Our system has a structural flaw in it. The way we fund schools is based on average daily attendance. When a student shows up, the school gets money. When a student is out, the school district loses money. And districts have experienced two things that are a huge challenge under a system like that. One, population decline. Population has been declining for decades. San Francisco has one of the lowest populations of families that have school-age children and young children. And so just by design, there is a flaw in how our schools get revenue. The other thing is just average daily attendance and declining enrollment. And so in order to bolster our schools so that they don't have to close, and they don't have to have teachers go out on strike, we have to move from an average daily attendance system to an enrollment-based system so that the schools have predictable revenue that they can count on, that they can make decisions about staffing. Here in San Francisco Unified, they struggle to know how many middle school principals and assistant principals that they could have. And the families were really upset because they know they need those leaders on campus supporting the teachers, providing training, and supporting the students. So if we were to move to a system of having an enrollment-based system, it would mean $6 billion more for schools all across our state. Our schools need that revenue, and as governor, I will sign the legislation to move us from an average daily attendance system to an enrollment-based system.
Great, thank you. One more question, and this brings us out of the inward-looking and more towards the outward-looking. What would your philosophy be as governor in dealing with challenges vis-a-vis the federal administration and what Trump has done with ICE, with taking money from California, and continuing to be a thorn in the side of everybody here?
You can say that right.
I could have said something else.
I like how you said it. I thought, you didn't say it, but I thought the word that you were thinking. Last year I wrote a bill that's been signed into law that says ICE has no place in any school in the state of California. And passed legislation to keep ICE out of our hospitals and out of our emergency rooms. It is a cruel thing when someone threatens you to the point that you don't even want to go see a doctor. And so I'm working on a new bill with a local assembly member here, Assemblymember Matt Haney, that says any company that operates an ICE detention center, and sadly there are 7 in California, any company that operates an ICE detention center, we will put a 50% tax on that company. And as governor, I will work with Congress to abolish ICE once and for all. We should abolish ICE and work on creating a pathway to citizenship for those who want the chance to work and pay taxes. Many of the immigrants in California simply are doing that. They're paying taxes into programs that they can't even utilize, like Social Security. And if you look at who's in these ICE detention centers, these aren't people who have created harms against our community. These are farm workers. These are folks who are working in our homes and sometimes as childcare workers. And so, we have to have conversations with the federal government to say that we're not going to tolerate that. And Trump impounded illegally $6 billion from California schools. And we sued his you-know-what and got that money back for California schools. We will fight in the courts. We will work with Congress. And we will pass legislation that will protect Californians against this reckless and cruel threat that we see in our communities. And I'm certain the Constitution did not envision that ICE agents would have the kind of powers and authority that they are exercising. It looks like mob rule. And we are a nation of laws, as they say. And our citizens and our community members have a right to be safe, and they have a right to expect that their government won't be a threat to them. And together we will work together, and we will overcome what's coming out of DC. We will outlive this administration, and we will find a way to get over and to prosper and build a better California.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.